Hi there, my name is Nimrita and I'm here because my short film Imperfection is being shown here at the Soho Screening Rooms.
I have Shai Hussain here, who is the director, writer, concept designer for The Waving Man. What I wanted to ask you, Shai, is that why did you choose silent film as a format?
Mainly just because it was like a Satyajit Ray influence. And I'll just confess I hadn't seen any Satyajit Ray up to the point of the competition. So I blitzed like loads, and there was one in particular. I loved the way that he did silent film, and the way that a lot of it was through acting and then basically having this amazing musical score over it. So I went through my list of many ideas, and I was like, that's not going to make a good silent film. No, that's not. And then found one which was like, that could do it. But it was, from about 4 years ago, although the story itself is from 30 years ago, because it's based on a real life story. I was the little white kid, but I'm not white. It was,
There's no mobile phones that far back either.
I was taken to school on that drive, and there was the old man was white, so he'd like wave, and it was just generally that feeling of breaking down fear. The more that you get to know somebody, that familiarity makes one of fear into one of love, and it just takes effort to get to that.
And so, because you chose silent film and there was no narrative and no scripting, how did you get Zahir and Rita on board to provide the music and the score for you?
I asked them. It's just like, Rita, I know from about 5-6 years ago, just because I liked her music and I went to one of her gigs. And with Zahir, there was basically, he was starting off at one time and then became this amazing composer. And he asked whether I knew how to get in with a BBC Asian network. And I sort of like pointed him towards Bobby Friction, and then he was just like, oh, thanks, I don't know how to repay you. And then 2 years later, I was like, repay me. So that's how that happened.
Great, thank you very much. Thanks, Shai.
No.
So the next person on my list is Sue and Simi. Belmaya hasn't been able to come, but we've got Sue and Simi, who are from the film Stronger. So, if you didn't know, Sue and Simi are mother and daughter. So this was an unusual collaboration for Simi particularly, because she was like, I wasn't sure what it was going to be like. So first question for you, Simi. You were saying that this song that you composed, because normally you compose mostly Western songs, and you composed, and it's cross-cultural because you introduced some of the Nepali drums. How did that change from your usual composition when you start composing music or writing lyrics?
So my usual method of writing music is I actually just sit on YouTube and find something that I like, and then I kind of work around that and then write my lyrics to it. But the only different thing here was I didn't start from a video I found on YouTube, and we did bring in some Nepalese flutists to play for us as well. Like the flute you can hear in the song is all improvised over the track, which we sent them.
Okay.
Yeah.
And is it good? Will you continue to work in sort of cross-culture, introducing some Nepalese music into your songwriting? Or
I quite like it. It's definitely different to what I'm used to. It's more interesting because I can explore more cultures and bring it all in to my music.
Great, thank you. And Sue, mother and daughter relationship, obviously. How was the process different? Because you are a documentary maker.
Yes.
So how was this process different to what you usually work with when you're making documentaries?
It was quite different. I mean, for a start, because Belmaya was in Nepal and I couldn't be there at the time, and I wasn't able to be there at least for the briefing thing and brainstorming and storyboarding or anything. And we just never managed a really good session where I had her and a translator and me together. So I had to send her the lyrics and kind of light the touch paper and hope something came back that was what I wanted. So that was the visual side. And then working with Simi, obviously we'd been in lockdown for quite a long time, so we were already at daggers drawn by then. So it was a bit of kind of carrot and stick and neither of them working. And then suddenly she just came up with the song, which I thought was great. And then we worked a little bit, lyric-wise, did we a bit with
I gave you like a draft and you like changed that.
Yeah, so my directorial sort of thing came through, and she said, shut up, not do it like this or not at all. So, but anyway, it was lovely. So I was really pleased with the song, and then sent it to Belmaya, and then that was a bit tricky because she was in lockdown, Nepal, like with India, sort of after us, and then more strict. And so I was getting so nervous that we wouldn't ever get the visuals, and the song was finished, wasn't it, way in advance. Anyway, finally she got a window of opportunity, and then I was really disappointed because I'd imagined all this sort of holy flying colours with a brilliant blue sky, and the one weekend that she was able to go up and film, it was a really dull day, and we waited till March when it was going to be this beautiful blue sky in the mountains. So then I had to kind of, on the edit, work on it. So I overlaid the filters and made it like it was sort of old-fashioned, 16mm, and just gave it a bit of a look. And then I guess it doesn't really matter what the weather was. It was just a mood and a look. So it was a bit different.
So when we had a little conversation before, Simi was saying that she would like to do music videos. Will you be doing her music videos now?
Darling, will you let me do your music videos for you? You never know, though.
You never know, yes. And would you, now because you are a documentary maker, would you actually try and do more narrative filmmaking? Do you think that you've got a bug for it, or are you just going to continue with your documentary stuff?
I mean, that sort of, it was a bit of a hybrid, wasn't it? Because it had a sort of message that I got out of documentary footage and put it together with a kind of storyline, which I suppose in a way is what documentary is as well, is you create a bit of a storyline. I mean, it's not completely fictional, but you have to still get a sort of narrative out of your documentary footage. So I don't know, I think I'll probably continue to work on documentary, because I think, truth is usually as powerful or more powerful than fiction. And fiction, gosh, when I see other people's credits that go on for acres of all the people you need involved,
yeah,
I'm a bit more used to working as a very small crew.
Okay, thank you. So I'm going to call the next group of people, which is Sean and James, who've come because Deyali is stuck in India due to lovely...
This stage isn't big enough for both of our egos.
Are you sure? Is it just you, Sean?
I'll just take this one if that's okay. Silent man, dangerous, quiet man.
Yeah, okay.
Quiet man.
So, Sean was introduced to Deyali first. Deyali introduced
Yes.
you met.
Yeah. I'll give you a quick background story to what happened. I was playing a show. Me and James used to play in a bar in Belfast called Fibber McGee's. I don't know if anybody's ever been to Belfast. If you haven't or you're going, go to Fibber McGee's. It's very, very good. I'm doing a bit of plugging now. So, Deyali, just like many people, that happens a lot. After shows, they come up and, oh, that was great. I loved your music, and people tell you all kinds of things. They say, oh, we're going to fly you out to New York next week and our bar and we'll pay. But most of it's just drink, people talking. But she was even more honest and real. So we swapped details, and she basically said, if anything ever comes up where there might be a bit of work, would you be interested in working on a film? Which obviously was a definite yes, So we met that way, and there last year, wasn't it? Confused these dates at the moment. She basically just got in touch with me and was like, look, we're doing this as part of the festival, and she gave me the lowdown on the whole thing, and I absolutely jumped on board straight away, So it was quite a natural meet, which was good, It's a good way to do it,
So in your the music that you did, I know earlier on you were hoping to do something really big and orchestra, with more more.
The lads beat us to it. The boys got an orchestra, so they did.
Yeah, they got the orchestra.
They did.
But you did do a worldwide collaboration.
We did.
How did you manage to get somebody from New Zealand,
Well,
someone from India, someone who's working in Wales with an Irish pipe?
pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, so it's kind of
It's a bit of a motley crew of people, really, you know. So the idea, obviously, how I would have normally worked is I would have picked out of my roster of people, like as I'm sure, you know, anybody that's, you all know, you know, you have someone that's plays a bit of guitar, or someone that, you know, whatever it is, maybe, you know, different people. But obviously with the pandemic, nobody could really go anywhere, nobody could do anything. So I had to look at remote recording options, which were basically people that had the equipment at home to record. So I could get them to do what I wanted, and it, you know, wouldn't. So that spread all over the world, because the only people that were really interested in doing any work like that there for me on this piece happened to be all over the place. So I'll give you a rundown. We have a tabla player in India. We had an Indian Dublin based man playing on the vocals at the start of the track. We had, as you mentioned, an Irish guy in Wales who plays the uilleann pipes, which are like a weird kind of bagpipe. Who else?
the fiddler.
Oscar West, yes, guy in New Zealand who had been over travelling with me a few times playing music, you know. So it was really great that everybody was stuck at home, you know, maybe some people couldn't find anything to do or had no creative outlets or whatever, and then I'm like, okay, well, do you want to try this? And everybody jumped at the idea, you know, to be in your own space at home, to be able to create and record and send back and forth. It takes a lot of pressure off people, I actually think it's something that I'll continue to do. Really, you know, plus it's a bit cheaper than going into a recording studio, isn't it? You know? But, and I have to say a big thanks to James, because James was the primary sort of sound recorder person. I don't know what the term is for it, but he was able to bring the technology side to it. So he was able to say, well, we need, you know, people that have this kind of capability at home and that can record it and send the files, sizes and data and all the different pieces. And it just came together really well like that. And it's a case of just simply recording and emailing the track to me, and then we were able to build it we were able to layer it, you know. It's a very different approach to actually sitting down with people in a room and creating music, you know, so it's very interesting. Mm-hmm.
So you just said that you would like working from home. Would you continue doing that, doing collaborations with people around the world?
Absolutely,
in the same way that you did with the Deyali?
Me and Deyali we're already sort of in talks about what we're going to do for our next piece, you know, and there's no need, you know, with the way, obviously with the pandemic and the global shutdown of everything fun has shown us that we can actually continue, the arts can thrive if we put, you know, work together, and we can try and, you know, find other ways to collaborate, you know, so absolutely I will. If anybody needs a bit of music done for a film or anything, you know. So yeah.
It's an Irishman, obviously. Indian and Irish, all the same, aren't they?
That's another thing I'll just like to touch on very, very quickly, if I could. Sorry to take up the time, but I would like to say that I know that you were talking about mixing different genres of music and stuff, and also the idea of sending stuff away to people and not being out there, you know, to work on it and say, you know, I don't actually really like that, could you change that a bit? But it's an exhilarating experience in a way, because it allows you to, you know, be more open-minded. But the cross between traditional Irish and traditional Indian music was something that I was really, really, really loved, always wanted to do, and I'm definitely going to do more of it, you know, so
great.
Watch this space.
Great, thank you.
All right,
thank
you very much.
I'd like to have Gardel and Joe come. So let me introduce you. Gardel and Joe worked with Shayan, and every time I talked to him, it was co-collaborators. He never said once that he did it on his own, which is quite a nice thing, because you know he was stuck in Pakistan.
Yeah.
Strange thing to do, but never mind. He decided to go. He decided to go in December and never come back. And you guys were here. So what I'd like to ask is, Gardel, how did you meet up with Shayan, and how was it that you, because it's an experimental dance narrative film, so how did you get the actors and as a whole to kind of work with you on regards with the movements and everything else, and how did it all start?
Yeah, so he approached me quite early on. Because the whole theme is a ray of hope, it was really, really sweet. He said, I can't think of anybody else sort of movement-wise that would like be able to project that, which is really sweet. because I dance, but I also movement direct, and I do a lot of set design stuff, so my creativity is all very everywhere. So then we started talking about this sort of concept of what we wanted to make, and we made this massive pot of exciting things to like sort of delve into. But then yes, he got stuck in Lahore, which meant that none of those things, well, a lot of those things are not going to be able to work the way that we wanted them to. So we had to rethink it all. So the concept, luckily though, and the kind of exciting parts stuck because we were like so set on those. The things like the black and white and like how we wanted them to move and like all those things. But then we had to find new people, which was really exciting actually. A similar thing where like, you know, you just have to release those ideas that you have out and let them happen. So I was working with the two dancers online over Zoom, which is crazy, to try and like, you know, movement direct and like give people critiques of this tiny little square, but it worked. And I'm really happy with how it's come about, yeah.
And Joe, you've actually worked with Shayan before, but you are really a sort of music composer, so your work is very different. How was this different to what you normally do?
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm a film and media composer primarily, although I've come from a very classical and performance background. So my typical style is sort of orchestral synth hybrid from a Western classical background. So but I have had experience playing in jazz, and so he said, I want to come in with jazz and Qawwali fusion. I was like, wow, tell me more. Tell me more, because that sounds interesting. That sounds really, really cool. But that was quite a few months ago, and over time it's just sort of developed as his vision for it is developed, and obviously other things have gotten in the way. I think. Well, I mean, other than the fact that this is completely different, but I haven't done a dance film before, I think as well, because it's dance, because the music has to really, really accurately portray exactly every single movement and just the importance behind it, because you don't have any dialogue to give that kind of extra information. You have to really, really understand the director's vision for it and the other collaborators' vision for it. And yeah, my relationship with Shai, he's such a great friend, and we really, really understand each other's style now because we've worked together in other projects. And I think without that sort of prior understanding, it would have been a lot harder to both get it quite as happy with it as we are, and also adapt to changing circumstances like being stuck in Lahore and other delays. I think just wildly different, just because it's a very different style of film, but also just the dependency on that relationship and understanding of creative vision, I think. Yeah.
Lovely. Would you both do more experimental dance films again?
Absolutely.
Definitely.
Actually, it was funny. After this came through, I got funding for another project, and then Shayan was like, quickly, let's jump on it. So we quickly made a film together before this one, and it's just been such a lovely relationship, as you say. Like, it's been so nice to work as a team, so 100,000,000,000%.
Oh, excellent. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
The next team I'm going to call is the team that worked on Rukhs. So I'd like to introduce Annusheh and Amit, who are collaborators, really.
Yeah.
So first thing I'm going to ask is a question to Annusheh, which is quite an interesting one, because you had to go, again, you were one of those people that got stuck in Pakistan. I don't know what it is about people going to... I was going to go and I cancelled all my trips to India.
That's so smart, because Pakistan is one of those places where like you go and your whole family's like, baby, you're not going anywhere. Like, it's a pandemic. You aren't staying here. So yeah.
So what I'd like to know is to ask you that, because you were in Pakistan, you mentioned that the filmmaking scene has changed quite a lot, film industry scene. How do you think that has changed? And was it useful for you to be there rather than here when you were doing this? Yeah.
Completely, because I feel like when I wrote the script, I very much had Pakistan in mind. and I was when the script kind of came to life, and I was like, okay, where do I shoot this? I just feel like I couldn't have really pulled Rukhs off in like Southall or something. I feel like I'd have to. A lot of it was very much. I think it's also one of the reasons I said it back in the 70s, because I wanted it to be very much like a love letter as well to Lahore, where I grew up. And to bring up the film industry thing, I feel like the film industry in Pakistan can be best described as kind of like a renaissance waiting to happen. I think there's so much potential there. There's so much creativity. It's also like a 60% young population. So like you can imagine how much potential we have there. And I feel like even almost everyone I've met in Lahore and Pakistan is like secretly a creative, you know? So I feel like with Rukhs, it was made out of so much love, so much effort, and this is especially true because almost everyone worked on this film completely, like voluntarily, including the love of my life. Thank you so much. And so it was very much like a blessing to be able to have worked with so much talent, and I guess the only thing standing between Pakistan and its renaissance is funding. So yeah.
And Amit, as Annusheh said, because at the beginning she was going to do it on iMovies. I actually do edit on iMovies. It works really well.
Thank you. It's so effective. You can get everything you need to get done.
So I'm not going to, because I gave up my Premiere license.
We'll catch up. I feel you though. I feel you.
So Amit, you were based in Mumbai at the time. How did you reach out to Annusheh? And how did you find out about the Digital Commission and how did it all work in collaboration?
Very funny story, but I think God finds its way.
Yeah.
So I actually very recently moved here. I was in Bombay, so I moved here last year. So before this I was working in film. So when I moved here, I was just trying to search around the film circle and trying to, find places where I can go and figure out. So that's how I discovered UK Asian Film Festival, just almost at the right time, and I was like, okay, there's Satyajit Ray, and then I just studied, and we had studied Satyajit Ray in college, so that was very exciting. So I was just stalking Instagram, UK Asian Film Festival page, and that's how I stumbled upon Anusheh's page, and then I just, the first thing I read was Pakistan. I was like, and I jumped on the idea, because personally I've been very, very, very passionate about Indo-Pak Association and everything related to India-Pakistan. Like, people back in college and school used to call me a fanatic because I was so pro-Pakistan and pro-India-Pakistan thing. So I just immediately wrote her an email and she didn't reply.
For 1 month. Okay, I'm sorry.
So she didn't reply, and because I was actually reaching out to a lot of people, sending them emails, okay, I'm so and so, and I've just moved to the UK, I'm looking for projects, can we collaborate? And just because she didn't reply and I was following Rukhs and I was following Annusheh on Instagram, I just started following her. She didn't reply after, I think 15 days, I unfollowed her. I was like, okay, fine, and she's not interested, fine, end of the discussion. Then I think after more than a month, suddenly out of the blue at some midnight I get an email, hey, are you still there? Like, can we catch up? And we spoke around, I think 1 or 2 in the night. I was in UK and we call up, and she was in Iran at that time,
yes.
Not even Pakistan, not even India,
I was
not
in
even
Iran
UK.
because I had contracted coronavirus and
she's like, and she tells me on the phone, I was actually planning to edit it on iMovie, but what do you think? Then okay, let's start from the beginning.
Yeah.
So then,
and that's literally how it started, because she was like, I'm not letting you edit this movie.
I was like, iMovie, no, please. But that was really personal. But yeah, things worked out, and we were discussing logistics. And she was in Iran, and we had a very, such a strong censorship issue we had over there. All the footage was with her.
It was
I was
so
like, okay, can
irritating.
you start sending me maybe the smallest scene?
And my internet was so slow. So it would take me like a whole day to upload one file.
Yeah.
So Amit would just sit there there. Like, what am I supposed to do with this?
So we started
Yeah.
somewhere, I think we connected in February, but it took me
Yeah.
almost a month to just receive the
Yeah.
footage
Yeah,
and for
yeah,
her
yeah.
to even to manage to come back to UK. So we
God,
were
it was so we really bonded in that time also.
yeah, so all we
Yeah.
would do is just call up and say, hey, how are you? What do you think? What should we do for the film? What should we plan? So that's how it happened. But thankfully, like she said,
Yeah.
luckily we got a lot of collaborators who just came.
Exactly.
We just finished the cut. We finished the first cut and I sent it out because I knew a lot of people back in India and thankfully also in Pakistan who I'd worked with. So I just sent them a rough cut asking, hey, do you want to collaborate? And they were so nice to just say, okay, yeah, why not? So we got a lot of people to come on board just, you know, out of love. And yeah, we do want to associate with the film.
So the post-production happened with me in London, Amit in Cambridge, like the sound
And some
designer in
people-
India.
Sound designer was sound designer was Scotland
Yes.
and your title designer and everybody was in Pakistan, colorist was in
Yeah,
Pakistan.
and my
It was all over the place.
my executive producer was in Lahore. It was a mess. It was a mess, but it worked out well.
It's a global collaboration.
Yeah,
Yeah,
like
for
he
sure.
said, like especially because of COVID situation, we all have figured out that art can thrive, like he said. So that's absolutely true. Like all of us have, you know, learned this new way of making films, and I think this will definitely continue.
It's good, and luckily the theme is Ray of Hope.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's what.
Thank
that's what
you.
it-
Thank you
so
so
much.
Thank you. Right, so I'm going to ask Nimrita to come and tell us what her film, why she made the film, and also Nimrita's film is Imperfection. So I'm going to ask you this question, which is really quite interesting. Why choose the title Imperfection?
Interesting question. Imperfection, I was quite set on the title from the very beginning. And as you all saw from the film, it's about neurodivergent and physical disabilities and how I think, in my opinion, there is not enough awareness or even acknowledgement in the Asian community or even just generally in the world. So the reason why I decided that I wanted to call it Imperfection and specifically highlight the fact that I am was in brackets is because that I personally feel that the brackets are just there and it's in your imagination, whether you can even take the as you saw at the end of the film, the title expanded from imperfection to I am perfection. And this is what I really wanted to showcase and say that people that are on the autistic spectrum, those who have a disorder or a syndrome, or even just are disabled in general, you are so much more than that. You are a person at the end of the day. And I want people to be able to not only embrace themselves, but just be able to be comfortable in their own skin. And that's pretty much the reason why.
And this film was very different from you because normally you do music and then you actually do a film associated with whatever you've written in your song, whereas this time you actually interviewed people. How difficult was it because of the fact that obviously lockdown, this is all going to be lockdown memories, I think.
my God.
How difficult was it to get that filming done eventually? Because there was a different idea at the beginning, wasn't there?
Very much so. If there's a God out there, why? But I actually had a very different plan, as you said, and I actually wanted to go to their places or their houses if this pandemic wasn't an issue in the first place, and interview them in their own houses, living rooms, bedrooms, wherever they are comfortable, and get the story from their safe space, so to say. And Manjeet, who is the civil servant and was talking about her dyslexia, is one of those people who is neurodivergent, and you would never be able to tell because she comes across as someone who's pretty much put together, who knows what she's doing and when she's doing it, and she's very organized. but you would never guess from her behavior or how she comes across that she is dyslexic or neurodivergent, and that is very much the same thing with me, because I'm on the autistic spectrum. A lot of people have come up to me and said, I don't think you are autistic, and that can, I get that it can be a compliment, but at the same time it can also be an insult, because I'm telling you this because I am trying to let you know that if I say something a little bit offhand, I don't mean it, or that this is just the way I am. So in the beginning, I really wanted to see them face to face, but obviously that couldn't happen. And conducting interviews on Zoom was a little bit difficult, but fortunately we got there in the end. We all managed to find and set and schedule dates, times, what we were going to talk about. I scripted questions beforehand, and I actually had more participants in there, but for personal reasons or for other reasons, some of them had to drop out. But I am really happy with who I had, and I think it just shows the sort of age in, especially in the community, because there is a lot of maybe representation in youth, but maybe not so much in the with our parents' generations or or the generation before that. And that again is something that I wanted to showcase. In a way, this topic was really wide to explore within just 3 minutes. But yeah, I'm really, really happy with what I've got, and I'm hoping that people can be able to see this and not only just clock this in their heads, but be able to apply this to real life. I mean, if this film did strike a chord with any of you, then I'm really happy that it did. And yeah, I hope it's helped in some way.
Thank you, Nimrita. Thank you.
Thank you.
So next on my list is Better Days. Robby, Khela and David Malcolm are here. So the first question I'm going to ask is to Robby, because we had a completely different idea. Obviously, this is what happens when you first submit. Why did you change it? Because your original idea was to have a music video. What made you change it?
In a nutshell, lockdown. We had a production company in place, we had locations in place, had a really good storyboard, and then suddenly we just found ourselves that we couldn't shoot anything. And the production company didn't want to come out and shoot either, which is rightfully so. So then we were left with a choice of what do we do? Either we give the money back and say we can't do it, or we kind of find new ways of working, which is what we did. So we had to simplify our storyboard, find ways to work with our iPhones mostly and stock footage, and then that's how we rolled.
Do you think what you've produced now is better than your original idea?
The original idea would have been a lot more kind of
I think it's probably incomparable, isn't it?
Yeah.
At this stage, based on what's come out of it. But I guess it's always in the eye of the beholder, really. But yeah.
I mean, it would have been really nice to work with a production company on a music video, with a proper storyboard and a proper director. It would have been a great experience. I mean, every actor wants that, basically. But in other ways, to kind of work on our own, find out skill sets that we think we didn't really have before. I think it's been a blessing and the silver lining of the whole situation.
So he's already kind of
set
it up for you, yes. David, so you did quite a lot of the technical aspect of it, and because that's not your skill.
Well,
is it, really?
yeah, so Robby and I met doing a musical a few years ago, so acting, singing, dancing and all that. And over the last sort of 2 or 3 years, I've taken an interest in film as well, not just theatre, but sort of every aspect of film, from writing script, filming it potentially sometimes, doing bits of editing. So I've taken interest in it, but I've never really done it to any high standard, I would say. And then on this project, as Robby was just saying, we did have a production team in place. It was going to happen. And then when it was like, we can't do that, it's down to us, I suppose it gave us and myself a chance to sort of bring all those skills to the forefront and go, right, well, we have to use it. We have to do what we can with what we have. And I actually think sometimes restraints are really helpful for creativity. I think if you've got all the money and everything you want, then it's quite easy to get lost. Whereas if it's like, oh, well, you've got this much money, this much time, and you've got this equipment, and you can't see each other, and you basically do it over Zoom and things like that, then you're forced to think of really interesting and different ways to do stuff. So, like Robby was saying, I think it has been a blessing, to be honest, just because it's brought out all different kinds of things in us that we weren't necessarily going to do. So I'm in a strange way, silver lining, I'm really glad that we did do it the way we've done it. And actually, this has also contributed to Robby, myself and our other collaborator, Nicole, coming together and creating a film company now at Table 26 Productions. So this was our first piece that we collaborated on together, and we have got another piece in the pipeline which we've been working on mostly via Zoom for the last year or so. So it's kind of like been the birth of or catalyst for a lot of other creative things. So I'm glad it's happened the way it has, in a strange way.
Great, thank you. That was brilliant. Thank you very much. So I have really enjoyed every single aspect of this. I keep saying this to you all the time, don't I? I really did enjoy it. Thank you so much for actually taking the time to submit to the UK Asian Film Festival Digital Commission. It's been great having you, and please, I don't say please, I just say I know that your films are going to be really successful, and send them out to the world, please. Thank you.
Thank you.